So today I'm going to give you a short video of fitting the steady spotlights to a Prado 2021 model GXL. And the reason the model is relevant is because of the LED high sensing headlights switching situation, which I didn't give much thought to. Anyway, chose the steady lights, don't want to break the bank, don't want to go cheap and cheerful, but want something at least half decent that's going to last me a while. Went for the Type X Sport 7 inches because I don't need big lights. I'm not planning on doing a lot of night driving, so went for the smaller ones, also to keep weight down, maximize airflow into the engine. But yeah, as I said, not really planning on doing a lot of night driving, but just need something to give me a boost if I need it. Anyway, so fitted to the Summit ARB bull bar, bolt through very nicely. What I love about the Summit bar is you can get your hand under here and get to the bolts underneath, so all three fit through the standard holes, no extra drilling. Fantastic. Feed the cables through, and there is actually a hole there behind the fitting, actually already in the bull bar. Cable can go through, down and underneath, inside. That is all now tied back and fed through, right through up to the battery point. I've got my connector here, which traditionally, I ordered it with the loom, so I ordered the standard steady loom with it, and that's the connector that traditionally would connect with some adapters to your high beam lights. I'll talk about that in a minute. So far I've not obviously connected to battery yet. Battery needs to be disconnected before I do more work. So both lights are on the front. Yes, and as you might have noticed, the black cover is not standard with the steady lights. I actually decided to spray the covers black because I don't really like advertising the products that I've got if I can avoid it. I'm not paid to advertise, and yeah, so just black it out, thank you. Anyway, so moving into the loom, which I'll talk about in a minute. I've had to order the additional loom, and that is because I have high beam sensor for high beam, sorry. And I didn't really appreciate this when I put them in, that would come into play, but yes, it does. So this is probably a word of note for those of you who have auto sensing high beam on your vehicles. If you want to comply with legislation, and here in Australia you have to have additional lights linked to your high beam, so that if you switch off your high beam, the extra lights have to automatically go off with it. Look, if you don't want to be legally compliant, that's your choice, but that is the situation here in Australia, which basically means that you need to link them into your high beam switch. But if you've got auto sensing, that then raises a couple of different issues. So one thing I discovered was, of course, when to connect this, which is what steady would normally connect with some adapters to your high beam. It doesn't fit on this vehicle from the standard steady loom. I actually went back to the steady website and discovered that you need to buy an extra kit. Fine, fair enough, but this needs to be wired in, and that's what I'm going to do today now, is wire that into the auto sensor inside. On the 2021 model, you have to remove this side panel. As I said, taking off the seal is probably the easiest way to go. But once you got that off, actually you need to remove the bottom strip as well, because you need to get to a nut that's behind it. And then in order to get that off, you need to take off this strip, but it's quite easy. They just lift off. This one just lifts off. This one's got a retaining plastic sort of bolt there, or of some sort. Anyway, that just comes off, unscrews and pulls off, and then this just pulls out, and the bottom one lifts up, and you can pull the seal right back, and then able to get to a bolt under there to get this piece off. There's also a second one underneath, a little cover here on this side, there's a little cover in there. There's a 10mm, another 10mm bolt, so there's one either side you need to remove, and there's a little screw in the middle that needs to come off. Once you've got the 2 bolts and the screw off and the side plate off, you can just pull this panel forward and the whole thing comes away. Very easy. For the wiring harness which goes up to the switch up here, you need to take out the 2 screws under the steering, so you need to be turning the steering to get the 2 screws out, and again that comes away. Yeah. Okay, now we've got the panels open. Dropped off the panel there. We had to remove the cover on the steering wheel as per the instructions. So underneath the lighting switch, if we get it in focus for you, underneath the light switch, take the plug out. Okay, that's where the plug sits, and then with the cable harness they put in, you obviously connect it up as per the instructions. Yeah, all good. Anyway, back together. As you can see, I've got my steady light switch in there, and yeah, all good, and it's all set up to the main switch there. I have to say, I've just tested it. It's daylight at the moment, so it's a bit difficult to really show you that it works, but I tested it on the high beam switching. That all works fine. And in terms of the wiring inside, so I had to feed through from the additional harness, so there are two lots of wiring going through now, and I've used the main, I don't know if you can see it, but the main grommet down there, I pushed it through the side of there, put a bit of wire through, pulled it through. There seems to be, without making a new hole, there seems to be enough capacity where the wires are going through to squeeze in extra ones there. So now I've got, with the original harness that goes to the switch, and now the second harness which goes to the high beam sensor. We've now got two cables that run across from here, and they now run across, and there's actually a connector which I've tried to cover up and protect as much as I can, and that comes back to where I put the relay. The relays here, the steady relays there. Yeah, and then everything else is just tucked away nicely. So from the steady relay you've got 2 cables that run to the spotlights, and you've obviously got your power that runs to the battery. I put mine on the main battery. It's fused here. Yes, it's not very neat and tidy. I'm going to have to do a new video one day when I tidy up my electrical, because like most people it's just growing and growing, and at some point I need to clean it all up. It's getting a little bit busy here. Anyway, so that's the wiring all in, all secured. Very happy. The lights are all good now. There's no point me showing you in the daylight. I'll see maybe if I can do a video later in the dark and show you everything's all good.